Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Hardware Podcast. My name is Jackson Danner alongside my good friend Omar Borja. You may be wondering to yourself, what am I doing listening to Jackson and Omar? The college football award season is over with. Well, one, you're not wrong. Two, we do have some all-star games that we're going to be previewing here on the pod. A lot of these names will be familiar as they are guys that are up for awards or were up for awards with that time of the year. But it's not just the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine Bowl. There are lots of them. There's the Hula Bowl, the Tropical Bowl. I mean, we've got a lot that we're going to be covering over the next few weeks here on Hardware. So today are two that I mentioned, the Hula Bowl and the Tropical Bowl, that are taking place this Saturday on the 15th. So yeah, we're going to be previewing those. And hey, just because they're, maybe a tier 2 type of all-star game does not mean there's not tier 1 talent on these. Plenty of guys that you'll be hearing about on especially day 3 of the draft. Lots of coveted UDFAs that are going to be coming out of this, and including a Super Bowl winning head coach that's going to be a head coach of the Hula Bowl, or one of the teams in the Hula Bowl. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, if bowl season's the most wonderful time of the year, for me, All-Star game season is the second most wonderful time of the year because you know how much I like history. All-Star, it's good. I mean, it's good that All-Star games are coming back in full force. Like in the old days, because it seemed like there was a million All-Star games in the old days because before cable television, I mean, the most you had was like the regional game on ABC, and you saw a player once on TV per year, and that was it. And then these All-Star games nationally televised. I interacted with the writer, with a pro football writer on Twitter, Dan Daly, who mentioned that the first time he saw Bob Hayes, Bullet Bob Hayes, a Hall of Fame Cowboy and 49er, was in the North-South Shrine game on Christmas Day, which was nationally televised on Christmas. So yeah, it's I'm excited for these All-Star games. It's a second most wonderful time of the year, and yeah.
Second most wonderful time of the year, and works out really well for you, Omar, that Valentine's Day is smack right in between two. So the momentum can kind of hopefully carry you into that, carry you out.
Well, let's talk about some football.
yeah. Hey, we got the HBCU Legacy Bowl a little bit after Valentine's Day, right? So you'll be all right. Don't worry.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, man. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and start off with the Hula Bowl. I'm going to go over this coaching staff a little bit because there are going to be some familiar names if you've been, paying attention to the NFL at all within the last, decade. Brian Billick, the head coach of the Kai team, love paying homage to the kind of Hawaii team names from when this used to be in Hawaii. It's taking place in Orlando now, by the way. Brian Billick was the Ravens head coach from 1999 to 2007, won Super Bowl 35 with them. And as if that wasn't good enough, the defensive coordinator is Wade Phillips. You might remember him as the head coach of the Denver Broncos, Buffalo Bills, Dallas Cowboys. He was let go of the Rams pretty recently, only to be replaced by some guy named Brandon Staley. I think he's done okay at the Chargers this year as the head coach. Since he got the job over there on not the other side of LA, right, but within LA. And then Kevin Sumlin, the former Houston, Texas A&M, and Arizona head coach, is going to be the wide receivers coach for the Kai team. And then we've got on the other side of the ball, other side of the field, we've got Mike Smith, former head coach for the Falcons, 2008 NFL head coach of the year, and Tony Wise. Glad it's not in Hawaii, man, because Tony Wise would have trouble paying for the luggage to haul his Super Bowl and national championship rings all the way over there. So those things must be heavy, right? So, so he's going to be the offensive line coach. So yeah, lots of really good NFL, not talent, but NFL coaching talent that's going to be coaching up these young guys. And hey, hopefully Brian Billick, Wade Phillips, one of these guys can kind of whisper in the ear of maybe one of those current GMs to take a chance on these guys.
Yeah, and that's just another aspect why these All-Star games are so great, because you have old NFL coaches, kind of putting back on the headset and everything. And it's like a blast in the past. Like doing some research for an article today, looking at the old East-West Shrine game coaches. I noticed the 2013 game, it was almost like, straight out of the 80s and everything, because you had Jerry Glanville versus Lehman Bennett. So you never know, I mean, where they'll pull the coaches out. coaching these games at their old age and stuff like that. Even though Ryan Billick's not all that old, and neither is Mike Smith, more recent in the coaching game. Granted, Lehman Bennett had been 30 years removed from his last coaching job, and they pulled him out for the Shrine game, which is cool. But yeah, I just love the coaching staffs. It's great that these players get experience with coaches that have been there, especially like a Super Bowl winning coach, and in Brian Billick, and a playoff coach, and Mike Smith, a guy who made a couple deep playoff runs with the Falcons. So it's great for the players as well. So yeah, just another aspect of these games that why we love them.
We're already getting off topic, but wasn't Steve Mariucci head coach for was it the East West Shrine Bowl not that long ago?
I bet he was. I'll have to look. Yeah,
I know he did
I think
something.
He was.
I believe it was the East West Shrine Bowl. Like I want to say like 2017, 2018, something like that. I could be wrong. I feel like I saw Mooch on the sidelines though for something. So anyways, yeah, you want to start going over to some of these players that we're going to keep an eye on here in the Hula Bowl?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and kick us off. I'm going to go with, I'll start with a quarterback first. Probably should do that, right? I'm going to go with Anthony Brown. Lots of ups and downs with Anthony Brown at Oregon. He led them just short of a bowl win this past year. But I mean, gosh, it's anytime you have to replace Justin Herbert, it's going to be difficult, right? Dealing with Mario Cristobal leaving for Miami. So Anthony Brown, glad he's getting a chance, kind of a fresh start in a way that you get to be in front of scouts and everyone at the Hula Bowl. You don't have, you have the reputation preceding you, but you also get to deal with the new staff, get to deal with new players, get some chemistry, hopefully. So yeah, I know I'll be pulling for Anthony Brown in this game. I think we're going to be paying most attention to a lot of group of 5 guys and some FCS guys as well in these, but Anthony Brown, definitely a power 5 guy that we'd really like to see show out and put on a great show.
And so honestly, I like the book and Anthony Brown. I got a comparison for you, very easy comparison. I think Tyler Huntley. So Tyler Huntley played in the East West Shrine game. Even though it's a bowl now, I'm gonna keep calling it the game because I'm that much of a purist. But Tyler Huntley played in the East West Shrine game. The book on him was that he was more of a game manager, of course, because he had, I think, Zach Moss running the ball for that Utah team in 2019 that nearly made the playoffs. And he made some plays too with his legs and with his arm, didn't make many mistakes, had single-digit interceptions. Anthony Brown's in the same boat here, where he had 2,998 yards in 14 games, a little over 200 per game, but Oregon had that strong run game with Travis Dye and CJ Verdell before he got hurt. 19 touchdowns, 7 picks. Didn't make many mistakes, made a lot of plays with his legs, 658 rushing yards, accounted with sacks. So with sacks, at least over 700 yards, 9 rushing touchdowns. I think the biggest thing with him was just getting an offense to allow him to make plays, because the game manager book would be even more stacked against him if he had stayed at Boston College. Because at Boston College, he dealt with injuries, but the most rushing yards he had in a season was 200. Severely misused in Steve Adazio's scheme. But can you blame Adazio for misusing him when he had A.J. Dillon to hand the ball off to? So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Anthony Brown takes kind of like a Tyler Huntley type trajectory, where he ends up signing a UDFA deal, works his way into camp as a backup with a scheme that really fits him, and comes in and makes some plays as a backup too. I always like the Tyler Huntley jokes where they call Tyler Huntley Lamar Jackson 2.0. There's a joke that was like, because Lamar Jackson's injured, the Ravens are going to start Lamar Jackson as a picture of Tyler Huntley. But all jokes aside, I'm excited to see what Anthony Brown does, especially with some deep threats, which we'll talk about later on in our Hula Bowl preview.
Yeah, absolutely. There are plenty of guys that went undrafted, right, as quarterbacks. Jim Hart, Tony Romo is probably one of the bigger ones. Jeff Garcia, I believe, was an undrafted free agent. So plenty of guys, right?
You pulled a Jim Hart reference. Wow, Jackson, I love it. I'm loving it, man. Jim, that is not what I expected. We're talking about the St. Louis Cardinals, not the baseball team. We're talking about the football team. Wow, I love it.
Yeah, man. Pulling the history books there, a little bit like you right there. But hey, plenty of undrafted free agent quarterbacks that have had success And I mean, it's tough enough as an undrafted free agent to just make the roster. Look at Felipe Franks this past year, who got a few snaps out of, after coming out of Florida and Arkansas, and he's stayed on the roster in Atlanta for a little bit. So, I mean, plenty of opportunity. It's not the end of the world if you don't get drafted. Anthony Brown hopefully sneaks in that 6th, 7th round. If not, yeah, I mean, there's going to be plenty of teams, ringing his phone and ringing his agent's phone, I guess, right, to sign him as a UDFA. So I'll go ahead and move on. Or did you? Yeah, go ahead and go with your guy.
Yeah, sure. So I'm gonna go with my next quarterback, another quarterback that I like a lot. I'm sure you like a lot too. Levi Lewis from Louisiana. A bit of a smaller quarterback, below 6 feet, but man, I mean, height doesn't matter anymore in today's NFL. We see Kyler Murray, of course, as well. We see Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, getting starting jobs. But I mean, Levi Lewis is a guy that has good touch in the pocket. Not afraid to run the ball, of course, at his size. Good pocket presence for a small quarterback. Great mobility, and again, another guy that doesn't make many mistakes at quarterback. And when helped out with a good run game like he had throughout his career at Louisiana, especially with Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell last year. He also had Raymond Calais running the ball too in 2018. Another very solid back that they had. But yeah, Levi Lewis, really good playmaker. And I mean, I'm excited to see what he does with pro coaching as well. And we'll see if it was if Billy Napier's scheme had a big role to do with it, with Levi Lewis's great career. But I mean, the dude's a winner too, man. Like I know that is such a cop out, but he's a winner. Like the last 2 years, I think Louisiana's record was 23-1. Like there's something to be said about that. Like I don't care about what the numbers say. I want Levi Lewis to get his chance, and like his stats, for example, like when we say the guy doesn't make mistakes, these were his touchdown interception ratios. He has a career 74-18 touchdown to interception ratio, 26 touchdowns, 4 picks in 2019, 19 touchdowns, 7 picks in 2020, 20 touchdowns and 4 picks, and then on the ground as well, 343 rushing yards with sacks accounted for, 5 touchdowns. Just another Anthony Brown type quarterback, but would love to see what he does in a pro scheme.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if he had another year of eligibility, he'd probably be transferring to Florida, right? Along with everyone else in Louisiana, it seems like. But yeah, Levi has had historic years in Louisiana's history. So it's going to be awesome to see what he can do in the Hula Bowl and showcase, hey, not under Billy Napier, a guy who's clearly a very good head coach. Looking forward to seeing, hey, what he can do in front of scouts and under. Do you know what team he's going to be on within the Hula Bowl? Is he going to be under Billick or Smith?
Let me check really quick, because the Hula Bowl was slow to upload the rosters. I know we had to do our research on Twitter, which is kind of annoying, but I'm checking that right now as we speak, whether you'll be on Ina or Kai. About events, let's see. There are a lot of tabs on top of this channel, or on top of this website. Let's see, athletes.
Navigate.
There we go. Okay, there we go. They uploaded the roster. So Levi will be on. You Control F this. Levi Lewis will be on team Kai, team Billick / Kai. So, and he'll be throwing to some of the targets. Yeah, he's got some good targets to throw to. Looking at it, a couple guys that I'm talking about.
Someone working with his receivers. So yeah, that'll be awesome. That'll be awesome. Yeah. So yeah, definitely a chance for Levi to show out in his last time putting on a Louisiana helmet. I'll go ahead and move on to my next guy, Raheem Blackshea, running back for Virginia Tech. He's a Rutgers transfer, a high school teammate of Kyle Pitts, by the way. In 2021 at Virginia Tech, 133 attempts, 760 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He's really a straightforward back. There's not many unnecessary moves. He's elusive, but it doesn't look like he's playing Madden out there either. Not a big back, but he's powerful for his size. He's really best outside the tackles. So if you're running between the tackles with him, he's 2.9 yards per carry up the middle, 5.6 yards per carry to the left, and 7.7 to the right. So he is definitely at his best outside the tackles. The Maurice Jones-Drew quote that I always say, if you can't catch, you can't play as a running back, right? 10.6 yards per catch, and it's not just wheels and flats. He can run a route tree out there. So he certainly can play in that aspect of the game. Personally, I think he's best as a rotation. I doubt he'll land up as a RB1 anywhere, but I'd love to see him, come in for, third down, something like that. spice it up. And hey, maybe even a little bit of slot, right? We're seeing guys, I know, yes, it was Urban Meyer, but Travis Etienne worked a lot as a just a slot receiver in the Jaguars training camp, right? He worked out mostly with and Saquon Barkley runs out of the slot all the time. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey. So we're seeing a lot of guys not named Derrick Henry doing this. It'll be awesome to see what he can do catching the ball at the backfield. That's what I'm most looking forward to. That and outside the tackles will be awesome to see.
Absolutely. And the running back crop for the Hula Bowl is just absolutely exciting. I got more than a few guys at running back listed on my players to watch. But yeah, it's great to see a guy who shared carries in the backfield, especially like last year with I don't know, was he at Virginia Tech last year with Khalil Herbert in the backfield?
Yeah, he might have been, actually.
Yeah,
I'm not sure off the top
was.
of my head, but I think he might have been.
So yeah, I mean, guys sharing carries and getting his time to shine. So it's good to see in these games too. And we also got some real workhorse backs in the group of 5 as well in this game that we'll talk about in a sec. But one more quarterback that we have. So the other quarterbacks playing this game. So we got Brandon Peters and Cole Kelly, who will also be playing in the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl at the Rose Bowl Stadium, which we'll cover, of course, in a couple weeks. So brief mention there, Cole Kelly, of course, coming in, I think, well, he's in the top 3 for the Walter Payton Award and won it in the spring in 2021. So brief note there. But next quarterback, Nick Starkel from San Jose State. And again, that's a guy who won in a tough situation in 2020 with San Jose State, led them to a 7-1 record. And just from his tape too, rewatching the highlights from the Boise State game, of course, from 2020, he just stands in the pocket well, delivers all the intermediate throws very well, has nice touch on the deep balls too. Just really solid too. And he had plenty of weapons at San Jose State as well. So it'll be good to see Nick Starkel have another go at a final All-Star game, because he had, really like a Odysseus like path in college, going from Texas A&M to Arkansas, throwing I think he threw 4 or 5 picks against San Jose State, transfers to San Jose State. If you can't beat them, join them. He joined them, led San Jose State to their first conference title since the 80s, or since either the 80s or early 90s. But great quarterback there, and it's great to see him have one more game in the bounce house.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be awesome to see. And hey, we've talked a lot about San Jose State, especially in a lot of our 2020 season podcasts, with all the success that they've had. So yeah, it'll be awesome to see what Starkel can do one more time. My next guy, we just interviewed a fullback, so I'm going to go with the fullback here, right? Clint Rakovich out of Northern Illinois, Western Illinois transfer, 104 attempts, 461 yards, and 13 touchdowns on the year. So he has had a phenomenal year for a fullback. What I really love about him, though, 126 career receptions and 10 receiving touchdowns. I mean, how often do you get to see that for a fullback, right? It's awesome stuff. And it's not just some finesse old style fullback. 0 career fumbles out of all the carries he's had. So really looking forward to seeing Clint and what he can do. We said it last night, right? Football's better with the fullback. Can't wait to see what he can do.
Rakovich will also be in the East West Shrine game in February. But the thing with Rakovich is I can see him just becoming also that super back position that Dan Vitale played in college at Northwestern, or even just going back to tight end, because it seemed like he played tight end at Western Illinois with all the catches that he had, barely ran the ball. Northern Illinois, Tom Hammock, former great running back for Northern Illinois, looked at him and saw him more as a fullback. So to fullback he went, and he did not disappoint, had a 96-yard touchdown against Western Michigan earlier this year. But yeah, just an intriguing prospect. There's a few good fullback prospects that I'll briefly mention. Xander Horvath for Purdue. Fullbacks from Purdue, what can you say? The great Mike Allstott. I mean, it rolls off the tongue. The comparison rolls off the tongue. You also got Joey Kenny from Rhode Island, a guy who's a blocking specific fullback. But fullbacks out of the Colonial Athletic Association, Pat Ricard, the perennial Pro Bowler out of Baltimore. So just a lot of good fullback talent. It's good to see them having them on the roster too, because some teams have superior schemes because they have superior fullbacks, like the Niners. Not being a homer at all there, but staying in the backfield though for my next player. So at running back, when we talk about the running back crop, it is just an amazing running back crop. And these guys could have easily made the Shine Bowl, I think, if those running back rooms weren't as crowded. But I'm going to start off with a guy that we talked about a lot in the spring, Julius Chestnut, the Walter Payton Award finalist in the spring of 2021, dealt with injuries this year. But just looking at his game, he hits holes quickly, bounces it to the outside very quickly. Not a hesitant runner at all, and it's good to see him go from the Northeast Conference to play against a lot of guys on defense that a lot of Power 5 guys on defense, a lot of guys that made a lot of great plays in the backfield in the from the secondary and linebackers. So it'll be interesting to see him adjust the speed of Power 5, but I have full confidence that Julius Chestnut will be able to. Just a player to look out for there in the backfield, all the way from Fairfield, Connecticut.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, this backfield is stacked. So I assume we're going to be seeing a lot of running the ball here for sure. So, and that's a good thing, right? Because there's just there's stacked talent in the backfield for both squads in the Hula Bowl. I'm going to go with a receiver, ironically, right? Just after I say that, a guy you might recognize from when we had our spring season podcast for the FCS, Dejin Dixon, the wide receiver from Nichols. Historic season. I couldn't find my Nichols State shirt for this podcast, unfortunately, but that's how good they were for a few weeks, right? No worse than 14 yards per catch a year, 7+ touchdowns every year, and 2,000-yard seasons, despite having that shortened spring season. He's still, even in that short spring season with only a handful of games, 8 touchdowns, 4.7 yards per catch, and only 35 receptions. So just really a lot of quality production put even in a short span, right? Now, one thing he has struggled a little bit against is quality presses, and he's also not much of a vertical threat. So what I'd really like to see him do is like improve one of those, right? Either be a better vertical threat or be good getting off press where you can, actually get separation on these slant routes and, in routes and stuff like that. So if he can figure out how to do one of those two under the coaching at the Hula Bowl, the NFL coaching at the Hula Bowl, man, something to watch out for because he is a raw talent.
Yeah, there's a lot of good receivers at FCS level and the D3 level too. Again, I kind of want to stay in order because you got me excited talking about Dejin Dixon because there's just so many studs in this at the lower levels too. And that's just a great thing too, I guess, about the Hula Bowl. It had taken. Did you want to take it really quick?
One thing I want to add about that, right, is just it's something that it seems to go back to like the high school level is if you're, fairly tall and you have ball skills, if you're kind of a receiver corner build, they're putting you at receiver. So we have such a corner shortage right now, and you're finding starting receivers in the like 5th, 6th, 7th rounds in the draft for these receivers. Like if you're in high school and you're listening to this and you're pretty good, please flip the corner. Like there's much more of a need corner right now. It's something I'm passionate about. Lack of DBs. There's a real DB shortage. Same thing with offensive and defensive line. If you're talented, if you're a big dude, you're getting put on the defensive side of the ball. That's why we have no quality guards and tackles coming out, it seems like, besides in the first round. So, hey, I've said my piece, just need to get out of my system, but it's something that goes back to, like the middle school level. Like if you're good, you have ball skills, please like play corner. Like we've got plenty of receivers.
And corner is a superior position, I will say. But yeah, speaking from experience, you don't need to be Deion Sanders you just got to have good football IQ and and be able to make tackles, and you'll be a JV starter.
And look at Trevon Diggs right now. Look at Trevon Diggs and how he leads the NFL in interceptions right now. That he was recruited by Alabama as a wide receiver. He talks about how he talked about with his brother about how he almost cried when Nick Saban asked him to flip sides of the ball and be corner. Look at him now, incredible corner. So it's a lot of the same skills. It's just everyone's playing receivers because those stats are a lot cooler. If you're a really good corner, you don't have good stats because you're not getting interceptions because no one's throwing at you. So.
Yeah, no, deep backs are absolutely cool. Main takeaway from that. So I'm gonna speed up my backfield analysis a little bit here because I could go on for days. So we got Bryant Kobach from Toledo also in the bowl game. He had in the Hula Bowl. He had 1,400 yards for the Rockets this year. He's got really good vision. Just another back to watch out for, along with Charles Williams of UNLV, who had two 1,200-yard seasons and wasn't on the best teams for the Rebels too, but he did what he could. Has absolutely great bursts and just changes directions very well. He's got like a few highlight reel runs where he just zigzags around the field. So very entertaining back there from UNLV with in Marcus Arroyo's offense. And then the last back that I'll talk about here. Sorry, I lost my place a little bit. Oh yeah. So of course, everyone remembers Jarrett Paterson last year, but in 2019, they had two 1,000-yard rushers. The second 1,000-yard rusher was Kevin Marks Jr., who was a bigger back, a more prototypical type pro back at 6 feet, 205 pounds, but he's hard to bring down. Guys just kind of like bounce off him, like looking at his highlight film. And it's kind of a shame that he was overshadowed by Jarrett Patterson with all of his greatness too, because any other game, any other school, like he'd be, top dog. But yeah, no, Kevin Marks too. I mean, one of my favorite things too is when the Camellia Bowl returned to Christmas on 2020, just Kevin Marks having a gritty 30 carry performance on Christmas Day against a Marshall defense that hardly got any points scored on them throughout the year in Conference USA. So Kevin Marks is just a guy that's just durable and will carry the ball 30 times if needed. So that's my end wrap up of the running back room in the Hula.
Yeah, Jared Patterson, as you mentioned, doing great stuff for the football team right now, and that's gonna be awesome to see. Who doesn't love Christmas Day football, right? Anytime we get the chance to talk about Christmas Day football, we'll mention it. So thanks for the excuse to talk about how great that is, right? I'll go ahead and move on to my next guy. I'm going to flip to the defensive side of the ball. CJ Brewer, defensive tackle for Coastal Carolina, 47 tackles, 9.5 TFLs, a lone interception, and 6 quarterback hurries on the year. Really needs some coaching. He does have a lot of raw talent and seems almost a little bit underdeveloped. The good news is he is a special teams regular for Coastal Carolina, which is something I'm sure he'll be doing in the league. So he should have, no problem transitioning to that, and hopefully gets the development he needs in the meantime. He's put on that much production and just doesn't seem to really like great hand strength, but not great hand placement. Quick feet, but not great footwork. Like just a lot of stuff like that, hey, with coaching, a little bit of cleaning up, man, he could do really good stuff if he's already having this level of production without that, right? So looking forward to seeing what he can do with, like we've said multiple times, some NFL coaching out in the Hula Bowl in Orlando. And yeah, hopefully seeing the next step in the league.
Yeah, and I mean, Coastal Carolina is sending 3 guys, I think, to the Hula Bowl, and Teddy Gallagher, the great linebacker known for his mullet, which is known as the chandelier. I think I heard Ryan McGee call it that, and wow, that is in the Hall of Fame of nicknames right there. But yeah, CJ Brewer as well. Just I mean, kind of like a smaller guy as well. But like you said, like raw talent. I mean, and size isn't a huge thing apparently too. If you have the strength and tangibles, you can become a guy like Aaron Donald. And Aaron Donald, of course, like all the advanced metrics say is probably top 5 great defensive player of all time. So technique and size, and like you said, coaching should help him get there, especially NFL coaching there too. I'm not sure the line coaches are, but I'm sure they're guys with wealth of experience. So Jackson's outpacing me a bit here. I mean, I loved so many guys in the Hula Bowl too. I mean, I really thought they did a great job with the roster, given how confusing the situation is with both the COVID year and guys, I guess, like opting out of all-star games in general. It's just a really confusing situation, but there's a great receiver group, and I kind of like speed run through this. We got a couple deep threats. I don't know what teams it are in the Hula Bowl, but you got Bryce Singleton for FIU, a guy who averaged 18 yards per catch, and like that FIU team had a really great passing game after really a horrid year in 2020 passing the ball. leaning on Devontae Price a lot. But this year they had Tyrese Chambers, who we talked about a little bit in the Blinikov race. And then they also had Bryce Singleton, a guy who, had some really great performances, like 6 catches, 199 yards against Old Dominion. Another great deep threat is Isaiah Weston. And when you think about, the football that's played in the Missouri Valley Conference, you think about Pierre Strong in South Dakota State. You think about North Dakota State and, their million fullbacks, and especially Hunter Lipke going off in the title game. But Isaiah Weston brings us change of pace there. Like the last 2 years, he's averaged over 20 yards per catch, including this year where he had 43 catches. Or I think it was either this year or 2018 where he had I think it was this year. We had 43 catches for 10,000 or not 10,000, 1,055 yards. Like just an absolute deep threat with great speed. It'll be good to see him with the quarterbacks in there. And then you got one last wide receiver that I have is Lawan Winningham. It's hard to find a lot of prolonged highlight reels on a lot of these guys, but in Winningham's highlight reel, I saw a guy that was, could win jump ball battles, has got great body control and balance out of Central Arkansas in the last 2 years, 95 catches, 92 catches, 1,514 yards, and 13 touchdowns for the Bears. So a great receiver group. And I almost missed the most important guy out of Little North Central University out of Ohio. We have Andrew Kaminsky. And if you haven't heard of Andrew Kaminsky's stats, you're in for a treat here. So in 2019, he had 133 catches for 2,016 yards with 31 touchdown receptions in 2019. In 15 games on a North Central team that went to the title game in Division III. And then this year, a little bit of a down year, if you could say that, 75 catches for 1,265 yards and 11 touchdowns. And this is a guy that will play the slot very well. And don't sleep on him because he's D3, because you think of D3 receivers, Pierre Garcon out of Mount Union, who had a very long career too. And I mean, even then, in the past too, there's been slot receivers coming out of nowhere. Wayne Corbett out of the Jets from Hofstra. I got a great feeling about Kaminsky, and I think the country's going to be introduced to a legend here. But I just can't believe that stat line: 31 receiving touchdowns. That's like franchise.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, that is insane. 31 receiving touchdowns. That's like an okay year for a quarterback. But like the fact that it's a receiver, like that's actually a pretty good year for a quarterback, actually. But like that's like ridiculous for a receiver. Do they not like triple team him on that? Like, do they not put like a corner nickel and have a safety just in case he gets one over the top? Like, how?
I think so, but like, looking at his reel, I mean, he just made some spectacular catches in traffic. They got the ball to him in the flats too because he returns kicks as well. He's got
talk about comfortable in space. That's one thing I've read before, that like GMs place a high value on receivers who have played punt returner before and kick returner because they're comfortable in space. They know how to navigate just physical space because it's a physical game and you need to know how to navigate that. So just something to think about. I'll quickly go over my two last guys for the Hula Bowl. Antonio Valentino, I do a disservice to all you guys if I didn't mention him. The Florida nose tackle is a Penn State transfer. Instinctive run stopper was the term used by the Hula Bowl in the announcement tweet for him accepting his invite. I mean, I've watched every snap of him at Florida. The main thing is he has to improve on his gap, as staying on his assignment. Gave up a touchdown versus Florida State. But man, he has a solidly high ceiling with some good coaching. I mean, he can be great. So I'm really excited to see. Hopefully sparks an interest in the NFL, right? And someone will pick him up as a UDFA or slip into the 7th round. But looking forward to seeing Valentino. Also want to mention the kicker for Wake Forest, Nick Skyba. What if I told you that Mike Smith just needs to get to the opponent's 32-yard line and he's guaranteed points? Well, that's because Nick Skyba has been perfect from 30 to 49 yards on the year. So he's 11 for 11, which any time you get above 40 and still doing that, I mean, he's 7 for 7 from 40 to 49 yards on the year, which is just really good. So looking forward to seeing what Nick can do and hopefully go perfect in the Hula Bowl, get some extra points.
Yeah, absolutely. And a fun fact there, I'm currently in S Bullock with with Nick Skiba's holder in high school, Chase Hill. So shout out Chase. You know, yeah, no, I mean, most of his success in high school is due to you. So, I mean, pat yourself on the
Completely
back.
unplanned, by the way. Had no
No,
idea
not
about
planned.
that. So
Not
that's
planned
awesome.
at all. We've talked about it a little, you know, but yeah, no, shout out Chase Hill. So I'm gonna speed up my defensive guys.
Hey, my man, you're muted right now. So
Sheet. That is awkward. So yeah, as I was saying, so I'm gonna speed through my defensive players really quick. And then talk a little bit about the Japanese players. You just mentioned them too, because it's just great what they do with the Hula Bowl in growing our game. You know, in those areas. So on defense, we got a few defensive backs that just rally to the ball and make plays in the backfield. Joey Blunt of UVA, 95 tackles in 2019. Antoine Kincaid, 100 tackles this year. One of my favorites is Luke Masterson, who had 13 and a half tackles for loss on Wake Forest on a much maligned Wake Forest defense. But this is a guy that'll probably fit as a DB linebacker hybrid, played linebacker at Wake Forest, but a little bit too small for the position. But just gets in there and makes plays. You got a lot of hard-nosed defensive backs like that. Warren Saba for ECU, same thing. Makes solid breaks in the ball from watching him on film. 4 interceptions, 5 pass breakups. And for 2 Japanese players, as I pull those up, should have pulled up already, but yeah, Hula Bowl Japan, gonna find them. So yeah, so we got Ryo, I'm probably gonna butcher this, Ryo Miyazawa out of Oberlin University, and then Shigeya Masunami out of Kansai University. So it's just great, both receivers. It's great to see the game grown and see these guys compete against, like, get on the same field as like Nick Starkel and like Anthony Brown, a guy that was like the guy that was a quarterback of a team that was in the thick of the playoff race in November. So I just love the Hula Bowl for that reason too. A lot of tradition, been around since the 50s. It's in Orlando because you know, Aloha Stadium is being torn down due to some structural issues. Hopefully it'll be back in Hawaii soon. But a lot of history here. The game took a 15-year hiatus, or excuse me, not 15. It took a 12-year hiatus from 2007 to 2008 to 2019. Came back in 2020. And it's just great to have the Hula Bowl back again too. So, yep.
yeah, absolutely. And they definitely took the following the model of the Pro Bowl, where they had the Pro Bowl there for so long in Hawaii, and then moved it to Disney World for a little bit, right? So following that model, I guess, placed by the NFL. But yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to the Tropical Bowl, which will also be played on the 15th, a little bit later in the day, I believe. I'll go ahead and go with, the star of the game, Cole Johnson, quarterback from James Madison, who we've talked about before, just short of 3,800 yards, 41 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions on the year. He's 6'5", 215. He was actually the basketball team captain and team MVP in high school. In the spring season, we reviewed how he performed very well in the FCS playoffs, ended up losing in the semifinal to eventual national champion Sam Houston State. His arm strength is just ridiculous. Like, he has very good arm strength, but the vast majority of his throws are under 20 yards, so he doesn't really flaunt it all that much, but uses it when he can. In the run game, he doesn't do anything like too special. He's definitely not a Cole Kelly or anything like that running the ball, but when he does run, he looks like Daniel Jones, because he'll just lower the shoulder, like almost like, hey, slide right there, you know. You don't want to see him get hurt. I honestly love him as a UDFA sleeper. Definitely going to be paying attention to Tom Pelisseri's Twitter to see where he gets signed to after the draft. But man, one last thing I forgot to mention: when he scrambles and he ends up throwing, really good habit of just resetting his feet when he does that. Doesn't try and throw on the run, but scramble, get open, set his feet, and throw in so accurate. It's awesome. So
I'll say this. Yeah, so Cole Johnson, absolutely great year for James Madison. You know, I'm kind of surprised he didn't get a look from even the Hula Bowl, honestly, too. I'm surprised they didn't give him a look, or the NFLPA Bowl, just given that he's from one of the biggest and most elite or one of the best and most elite programs in the FCS. But, you know, we're glad he's in the Citrus Bowl. Another quarterback in the Citrus Bowl. I mean, the quarterback group in the Citrus Bowl, not the Citrus Bowl, excuse me, the Tropic Bowl is the Tropical Bowl is it's a lot of kind of like remember that guy from college. Like you got Terry Wilson who makes his return to the Citrus Bowl Stadium after leading Kentucky to 2019 Citrus Bowl win over Penn State. You got Anthony Russo, who finished his career at Michigan State after a solid career at Temple. You got Jared Garantano, Tennessee great, who transferred to Washington State. So it's kind of cool to see these guys get one more game in a historic stadium. The quarterback I'm going to talk about, though, is Drew Plitt out of Ball State, who Ball State is a noted quarterback factory. As they had Nate Davis drafted by the 49ers, and now quarterback of my hometown, Duke City Gladiators, set the Indoor Football League touchdown record with 79 last year. Shout out Nate Davis. Ball State, Muncie, Indiana, quarterback factory. Drew Plitt is no different. He's got solid mobility, solid ball placement on a lot of tough balls in the red zone from his highlight tape. Also punts the ball well. Had 4 punts for 143 yards in 2020, including a couple punts in back-to-back weeks down inside the 5-yard line in the MAC title game and in the Arizona Bowl against San Jose State. So, don't be surprised if you see in his career, he's got 7 punts. So it's not a rare sequence to see him punting the ball, but you might see Drew Plitt in a late December game, playing the Big Ben role. If Mason Rudolph gets hurt, you might see Drew Plitt go back for a quick kick. But Drew Plitt, just a good quarterback, had a great career at Ball State, won some games there for that program, a program that hadn't been to a bowl from 2014, to 2019. So Drew Plitt, another quarterback to watch in the Tropical Bowl.
If we get a quick kick in the Tropical Bowl, I think both of us might just like melt. That would be awesome. Let's see, right? In an all-star game, what a place to do it. That would be, it's in Orlando, right? That'd be magical, right? Better than anything Disney can do. So I'll go ahead and go with my next guy on the defensive side of the ball. Tony Fair, the nose tackle from Auburn. He's a space eater at 6'1", 330. He is experienced and mature, 25 years old. He's a UAB transfer. He's a dad. Just a really mature, awesome guy. At UAB, 57 tackles, 8 TFLs, and 2 sacks in just 18 games. Hasn't had near that kind of production at Auburn, but neither did Jordan Davis, right? On the stat sheet, at least, didn't have that kind of production. We know he can be productive, obviously. Hopefully the Tropical Bowl can, pull the best out of him, right? Hopefully we can see him put some numbers up. That'd be awesome to see him come up, just shoot up that A-gap, get a nice sack. That'd be awesome to see.
Yeah, absolutely too. It's kind of weird to see a guy transfer from Auburn to UAB, almost like up the highway down there in Alabama. But just a solid career for the Blazers too, and a big part of their continuing rise, which ended in a great win this year against BYU. I forgot one more quarterback too before I move on to my next guy. Weston Elliott out of Merrimack. Weston Elliott's a guy that is an absolute gunslinger. His tape was fun to watch because on my notes here, I put takes a lot of risks and then fits some balls in some really tight windows. And to be honest with you, I don't know if that stuff would fly outside of the Northeast Conference, but he's so fun to watch. 30 touchdowns, 16 interceptions this year. He just needed a chance. He was buried in the depth chart of Louisiana Tech. Needed a chance. Can show out in some big games. He beat Holy Cross in their home opener the week after Holy Cross beat UConn. Really, really one of the more shocking upsets of the FCS season. But Weston Elliott, really great gunslinger there. Excited to see him work. I'm going to move on to a wide receiver that I called dibs on talking about in our notes. Trey Gross, a guy that we talked about in the spring and who got a good amount of exposure in the spring when Delaware State had a couple games either broadcast live or on tape delay on ESPNU over the spring. Great exposure for the MEAC and Delaware State. But Trey Gross is a guy whose film I absolutely love. Like, he is tall and physical, high points the ball so well in the red zone. The thing that gets me is how great he is after the catch. Like, he'll make a guy miss with a quick move, but he's not afraid to just carry guys with him. And it's funny too, because he's about 6'4", 210. He looks like a basketball player. He almost boxes players out like a basketball player would, but he's just so darn physical. And I hope my Niners snag him because, the last time the Niners took a chance on a wide receiver from Delaware State, he caught the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl against the Bengals. Shout out John Taylor. But Trey Gross, honestly, I kind of would have loved to see him play in like the Hula Bowl, honestly, too, because this man is I mean, probably one of the better jump ball receivers, I think, in the FCS and maybe in college football.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely is. I mean, like you said, I mean, he's on a platform, right? There will certainly be NFL scouts in the building. Certainly be a chance to perform in front of decision makers and all that. So yeah, so hopefully he really balls out because this is going to be his big opportunity and he gets a really good shot. I'll go ahead and go with Marcus Williams, a running back from Louisiana Tech. 194 attempts, 792 yards, and 8 touchdowns on the year. So a heavy workload. Also 20 receptions, just above 200 yards, and 1 touchdown out of 1 receiving touchdown, that is. One thing that's been interesting about he's had consistent production between Appalachian State, where he transferred from, in Louisiana Tech, despite having 4 different head coaches at his time between the 2 schools. He's adapted to them all. I think it's affected his ability to read defenses a little bit because he hasn't had that consistent coaching. But man, in his own words in an interview, he said, quote, "I'm a player who has the speed to deliver yards, the agility to shake up defenders, and the hands to retain possessions and score consistently." So what more can you ask for of a running back, right? So we'd love to see Williams really show out.
Absolutely. And I mean, Louisiana Tech, they produced some great running backs over the years. Kenneth Dixon, the first one that comes to mind, had the touchdown war in 2015. But just the ability to adapt to coaches, we see the coaching carousel in the NFL. It's a common thing as well, too. And I mean, it's just not even just that. It's like free agency, too. Just being able to adapt to different coaching staffs. Great talent to have. Excited to see him play in the Tropical Bowl this Saturday. Moving on to the one running back I had, and this guy's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. He was a halfback, fullback, and a tight end. We got Jordan Myers of Rice, and this guy, whatever you name, he did for the Rice Owls. Played some running back. Started off as more of a goal line back. Well, actually, he didn't start off as more of a goal line back. He started a couple of games in general, getting a lion's share of the carries his freshman year. Then transitioned to more of a goal line back / H back later on. But for his career, he's got 93 catches for 970 yards, 3 touchdowns, 148 carries, 553 yards. They needed him back at running back, so he responded. Had a 160-yard game against Texas Southern this year. Also of note, too, he scored the first touchdown in Rice's stunning upset win against Marshall in 2020, a game which I think was probably one of the bigger upsets in 2020 in general, too. I don't think anyone saw that one coming, too, given that it was Marshall's first loss and sent them in a tailspin. But really excited to see Jordan Myers, because we see these like Swiss Army knife type players kind of like, I guess coming into the spotlight, because you got Deebo Samuel for the Niners too. Just not even taking runs on the edge. Like the Niners will toss him the ball and he'll run inside between the tackles. Really, really interesting to see. And then you got Cordell Paterson for the Falcons too, who's been doing it for years, but just became magnified this year, and who was a Pro Bowl snub, to be honest with you. So it'll be great to see Jordan Myers step into that position right there, of being that sort of back, that Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely will be awesome to see. Like you said, Swiss Army knife. He's playing every position on the field, right? So that'll be awesome to see, and hopefully they take advantage of that and get a little opportunity on special teams as well. I'm gonna go special teams on my next guy. Ben Neeser, the punter from Valpo. 13 punts of 50 plus yards on the year. He's a self-taught punter, didn't even start punting until his senior year of high school. He has some athleticism in him too. He's a high school basketball athlete and also had a 17-yard run versus North Dakota State for a first down. He's worked to be really hard to be able to do 4 or 5 different types of punts. These pro style rugby spirals. I mean, he's got a lot of tools in his toolbox. Despite not being single like you, Omar, I actually watched the 7-minute highlight tape of him, and man, he's done some really solid stuff. A lot of punt returns, backtracking, and their steps once he punts. So he's going further than expected, above and beyond, you could say.
That was unnecessary, but I mean, I see the link in our notes. I'm probably gonna check out the punter tape too, because it's interesting. But yeah, no, I mean, he was also in the FCS Bowl last week, performed well enough too. And that's a Valpo program that, to be honest with you, doesn't get much exposure out in the Pioneer Football League. If it's not San Diego, even Davidson's kind of underexposed to, despite winning the league crown in 2 straight years. So it's just an interesting situation there too. But great to see Neisner getting some attention there out in this bowl game. So I'm gonna move on to a pair of or I guess some wide receivers. We got BJ Bird, who was a Walter Payton finalist. Absolutely great year for Morehead State, staying in the Pioneer Football League. 90 catches, 1,313 yards with 13 touchdowns. A lot of 13s there, kind of a coincidence. But looking at his tape, he is an outstanding route runner. He lays out for balls. Yeah, I'm excited to see him work against these D-backs. He was running some crisp routes out there for Morehead State, a Morehead State team that was in the thick of the Pioneer Football League race until they faded down the stretch. But I think they have the tools to make their first playoff appearance.
Yeah, that would be awesome to see them have the opportunity to do that. And man, hopefully he can show out this Saturday. I'm gonna go ahead and go with my last guy. I know I went special teams next to last, but Ted Kabongo, the running back from British Columbia, actually, right? So from British Columbia, got to represent Canada a couple times, playing against Chase Young, Trevon Diggs, DeAndre Swift. So he's gone against some of the best before. He mentioned all 3 phases of being running back are important: running, catching, pass protecting. Something you love to see, especially from an international player. Fingers crossed he's. Hey, bro. Fingers crossed he's invited to the NFL Combine and he can make a tremendous impression. If not, the Tropical Bowl is certainly where he can make one. Hey, you're muted, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm impressed with how you picked up from where you started. After we had some technical difficulties, we'll see. Hopefully, nothing's lost there. If the whole thing is lost, then if the whole recording is lost, then I don't know what I'll do. But anyway, yeah, no, I mean, there's a great pipeline between Canadian players to I guess to the NFL. I mean, the East West Shrine Game since 1985 has had a Canadian player play. It's cool that the Tropical Bowl is carrying on that tradition of Canadian players playing against American players. Like we said, just growing the game, even though the game's pretty much as grown as it's supposed to be in Canada. It'll be interesting to see how Kabongo does against D1 or Division I guys. So I'm going to move on and talk about a few guys on defense, just going to group them together really quick. So from San Diego, again, staying in the Pioneer Football League, we got Michael Hawkins. Makes a lot of plays in the backfield, not afraid to get his nose in there and make some good hits. Solid return man as well. Had some very good returns on his highlight reel. A couple of guys, too, that were impressive on the stat sheet. We had Anthony Tedesco from Delaware Valley, 2021 MAC, as in Mid-Atlantic Conference Defensive Player of the Year, with 83 tackles, 8 TFLs, 3 forced fumbles. He has 28 career tackles for loss, a little bit small at 6'1", 225, but we'll see how he does, honestly. We also have Chris Rice, defensive end / linebacker from Castleton, and I'm excited to see what he does. He had 2018, he had 22 and a half tackles for loss. 2019, he had 18 tackles for loss. 2021, he had 23 tackles for loss. Really dominant edge rusher. Looking at his film too, he's at 6'3", 245 pounds. So it kind of fits like that, that sort of edge rusher outside linebacker type. Should be running out of a 2-point if he gets a look from the pros, but out of Little Castleton in Vermont. I'm excited to see what Chris Rice does in this All-Star game. Hopefully he gets a UDFA look.
Yeah, hopefully. And I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know how UDFA works, right? But like, it's not like the MLB where like there's like 35 rounds, right? So NFL draft used to be longer, but then they cut it to just 7. Like Izzy says, just 7. Like it's not long enough, right? But actually, most of your rookie class is UDFA's, and a lot of UDFA's will have, like almost 32 offers from a lot of different places. So yeah, that's how it works, and I mean, you can choose which place is best for you. I know Tony Romo got an offer for a UDFA offer from Denver for a lot more money. Took the choice to go to Dallas because it just made more sense for him, more of an opportunity. So that's the great thing about being the UDFA. You can kind of pick where you get to go. Obviously, you're not as coveted after if you're not drafted, but a lot of these guys that end up being UDFAs, I mean, some of them are as high as like 4th-round grades on some big boards, right? So that's really the benefit of there. But yeah, I mean, that wraps it up for me. Omar, you want to tell where everyone can watch these games on Saturday?
Yeah, but before that, I wanted to say the best for last. We got 2 Ivy League players playing this game.
Oh, yeah,
We have Melvin Rouse, wide receiver and defensive back too. He played corner as a junior. Electric return man, had a 100-yard kickoff return on the first play of the season against Holy Cross for Yale in 2019. Imagine starting a season like that, opening kickoff of the season for a touchdown. 85-yard punt return in the rain against Columbia. Really good slot receiver too. Just catches the ball in the flats very well, moves very well. 5'9", 178. I think he can get a look as a return man, honestly, in the future in the NFL. There's also a tight end too, JJ Holland, also the Yale Bulldogs. He had 18 catches for 326 yards in 2019, and in 2021, he had. Should have these stats pulled up. When will I ever learn? But in 2021, he had pretty solid year as well. 16 catches for 238 yards and a touchdown in the game against Harvard. We know the Ivy League produces tight ends left and right. I mean, tight ends and fullbacks. You got James Devlin, who was a mainstay on the Patriots for years, out of Brown. You have Kyle Juszczyk out of Harvard for the Niners, paving holes and doing everything for the Niners. Honestly, you got Anthony Ferkser and Cameron Brate, 2 more tight ends out of Harvard. Brate honestly would be starting for a lot of teams in this league, and would be starting for the Buccaneers if Rob Gronkowski weren't there. Anthony Ferkser, really solid tight end in the Titans scheme, and even Jesper Horsted catching a couple touchdowns this year for the Bears out of Princeton. So, JJ Howland, he could find a place on a roster too. Good deep threat tight end too. He's got a great yards per catch for a tight end. So had to save the best for last with our 2 Ivy League players out of Yale, hoping to make a bulldog, bow wow, Eli Yale out of the Citrus Bowl for the Tropical Bowl. So, but yeah, like you said, that game will be at noon Eastern on the Tropical Bowl's website. So very convenient and easier to access, frankly, than CBS Sports Network for the Hula Bowl at 4 p.m.
Yeah, it definitely will be. So definitely something to watch. And I mean, that was the whole thing with the Arizona Bowl. It's going to be on Barstool's website and live streamed on Barstool's YouTube channel. There was a USA Today article that was about how inaccessible it was and how no one could watch it, but it was actually more expensive to pay for the article than it was to watch the Arizona Bowl. So that's one of the great things about it being live streamed online. Yeah, I mean, not much national exposure, but the people that matter are going to be watching it. So yeah, man, that wraps up for me. Anything else for you, man?
No, but be on the lookout for us doing these previews each week, or the week of these games. The schedule goes, we have the NFLPA Bowl on the 29th. And then the week of the first week of February, you got the Shrine Bowl. And then you have the Senior Bowl 2 days later. And then to wrap a bow on things, we have the HBCU Legacy Bowl, which we'll hope to collab with our friend of the channel, Dwayne from the Yard HBCU Sports. So just a lot of exciting things coming up for these All-Star games too. And just to wrap a bow on just a great comeback year for college football with the fans back in the stands and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely plenty of all-star games, and hopefully we can get a couple more interviews lined up as well. Yeah, until then, we will talk to you about the NFLPA Bowl.
Yep. And until next time, peace, love, soul, and Mele Kaliki Hula Bowl.